So how often do you argue with your partner or perhaps even a friend or family member? And if you are arguing, are you doing it healthily, respectfully, effectively? Despite what you might think, arguing is not inherently bad. Often arguments have a negative connotation associated to conflict, but healthy arguments done in a respectful manner can actually be quite good for you. And it's worth understanding what these benefits are, as well as how you can go about doing so to communicate more effectively. So in this video, I'll go through exactly that, exploring the benefits of arguing. And so if you're interested, stay tuned to the end of the video. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel so I can continue to help you mind the golden mind. So despite wanting to avoid all forms of argument in general, the truth is arguments can give a sense of control and even lead to lower cortisol levels once you've expressed yourself, compared to avoiding confrontation entirely. By arguing right, this can reduce physical and psychological frustrations associated with unresolved tension. Overall, arguing helps prevent resentments and enhances emotional health. So it's time we start thinking about arguments a bit differently, as they can offer several benefits. For one, you can foster mutual respect between whoever you're arguing with. Whether it's your friend, lover, or family member, arguing respectfully and effectively allows you to express your thoughts, feelings, and frustrations, and as a result, you're able to understand the other person's perspectives, broaden mutual understanding and respect towards that person. When partners can listen to differing opinions without getting upset or angry, it strengthens the bonds of love through mutual respect. And then you can also strengthen your relationship. With this added mutual respect that I talked about earlier, you can strengthen the relationship between the said person as you're arguing respectively opens communication. Being able to express thoughts freely without fear of upsetting the partner is a sign of a strong, enduring relationship. On the other hand, withholding true thoughts due to fear of conflict can actually strain and eventually break down the relationship. And of course, arguing right in a healthy way creates a feeling of comfort. Being able to argue means that there's a sense of comfort between the two people. Comfort in relationships stems from the confidence that expressing different views won't harm the bond. So this authenticity that you have between two people allows both people to be true to themselves. And of course, it also reduces secrecy. Frequent in-depth arguments can lead to greater transparency, reducing the likelihood of secrets or withholding information within a relationship. Instead of being fearful or sharing your thoughts or frustrations, open arguments allows you to be honest. And while this is not for everyone, some people may also enjoy that mental stimulation that comes from arguing. It can be boring when we have yes men surrounding us all the time. Sometimes it's a bit more stimulating to get people challenging our views and ideas. And this is what argument does for our relationships. It tests our perspectives and beliefs. So it's worth arguing every now and then to challenge what we think. And finally, you can address incompatibilities as well through arguments. Referring to the challenges that I mentioned, one other benefit that arguing does is ultimately expose and address the incompatibility you might have with a specific other person. Not everyone in this world is going to be compatible with your beliefs, perspectives, and way of behavior. This world is diverse with many different opinions, backgrounds, and cultures. As such, being able to understand each other's viewpoints and issues serves as a sort of release valve for frustrations and healthy problem solving. So, when we argue, there are several parts to our brain that are active. One of the key areas that are triggered is the amygdala, the emotional center of the brain, and the part that deals with our fight or flight response. During arguments, the amygdala becomes activated, which is often why we are faced with emotional responses with anger, frustration, or even fear at the very beginning. If we argue ineffectively, yelling without reason, this can trigger stress responses that release adrenaline and affect our prefrontal cortex, the decision-making part of the brain. This part of the brain moderates our social behavior, and so when we are triggered emotionally, this area can actually reduce inactivity, thus making it harder to think logically. This can impair rational thought, and it usually takes at least 20 minutes for the stress response to subside, which can disrupt productivity and even lead to impulsive action. If you do trigger someone emotionally and they aren't arguing with reason, give that person about 20 minutes to sort of cool off. Then of course, when you have disagreements, the anterior cingulate cortex, or ACC, can become active, which involves emotional regulation and error detection. This is why when some people feel a bit defensive or are dealing with disagreements in a way that is against their own beliefs, they may have trouble mediating their own emotional response and thinking rationally. So now that you know what's actually happening in our brain when we're arguing, now it's about trying to learn how to argue effectively, because arguing effectively is key in building healthy relationships. We do it all the time, negotiating our stances on things, trying to get something that we want. out of a relationship, whether it be professional or personal. Sure, you may not be able to call it arguing, but ultimately arguing is just simply defending your point effectively. And McCohen, a life coach and an expert in arguing, suggests seeking clarification, practicing self-reflection, and watching your words and body language. Post-argument, conducting an argument autopsy helps to learn and grow from the experience as well. Besides that, there are also some tips to keep in mind if you want to learn how to argue more effectively. One way is to practice active listening. Concentrate on the speaker, understand their message, and respond thoughtfully. A lot of times people hear more than they listen, so when it comes to understanding the speaker's points, you need to actually listen, not spend that idle time thinking of what you're going to say, and instead give them your full attention. I will go through tips on active listening in a future video, so stay tuned and make sure to subscribe to the channel as well. Then also, keep calm and carry on. And then as the popular adage poster states, just try to keep calm and carry on with the conversation. It can be easy to get triggered, feel emotionally defensive, or even ready to fight when someone disagrees with you. But maintain composure to think logically about the words that are being said and approach the argument with a clear head, attempting to understand exactly why the person believes or thinks the way they do. This brings me to my next tip, which is to then strive to genuinely understand the person's point of view. This doesn't mean you have to agree, but showing that you acknowledge and respect their perspective can lead to more constructive discussions. If necessary, even say this out loud to show them that you have heard what they have said and acknowledge their point of view. And also then try to stick to the facts. These days, a lot of people act on feelings rather than facts. So for the sake of logicality, focus on facts and evidence rather than unfounded claims. Sometimes if the person feels like their opinion is a fact, you need to learn to guide them through this reasoning without getting them to feel offended, because as the confirmation bias tells us, people will search out information or patterns that support their beliefs despite there being no factual basis for that belief. And of course, remember, a good argument is about respecting one another and focusing on the point of discussion. Keep the argument constructive instead of being hurtful by insulting the other person. And then also know when to agree to disagree. Sometimes some arguments are just not winnable. Some people are just too stubborn to let go of their beliefs, and a lot of the time, ego is at play when it comes to arguing. For this reason, being able to recognize when a resolution is not possible and agreeing to disagree amicably may be the best way to move forward. In the end, this video is not to condone arguing with everyone and anyone constantly. Instead, it's just a subtle reminder that framing arguments in a negative light and avoiding them entirely is not necessarily the best way to look at things either. Arguments can be healthy if done right, as I've discussed throughout the video. As such, try to use some of the tips to argue more effectively, and in another video, I will dive deeper into more tips taking advice from expert negotiators and communicators to help people understand the best argument strategies. So if you do want to watch that, make sure to stick around by subscribing to the channel and allow me to continue feeding you nuggets of gold to boost brain and behavior.